we have to create the right vibe, the energy, and everybody at the organization has to feel so privileged to be here. It's no other way.
Thanks for listening to the Purely Arsenal podcast. Please follow us on Twitter at Purely Arsenal FP for all the latest Arsenal podcasts.
Welcome to another edition of a Purely Arsenal sit-down podcast. I'm here with my regular Neil Shah to discuss the 1-1 draw at Chelsea, maybe a little bit on the defeat to Inter Milan in midweek and where that leaves us in our Champions League giant table that we have this season, and a few other things, taking stocks in another poxy international break, but perhaps one that we all need at this point. I don't even know anymore, Neil. Neil, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thanks, Jack. Thanks for having me on. And a bit of a strange and tough time for us, but let's see if we can make sense of it all. Yeah,
it's been a shocking few weeks in terms of results since the last international break. I don't think we've won, or I can't recall one. I think the first game back was the Bournemouth game, and then it's been that sort of collection of sort of defeats and a draw obviously here. So I don't know if you ever need an international break, but we need something. It's sounding a downer. We certainly improved this week despite the results. Only 1 point to show for it, but we definitely improved in terms of our football in play. But we went to Stamford Bridge. Now, I think going into it, I guess I want to ask you first. A lot of people said it's a must-win game at Stamford Bridge, and I would probably argue I was about there. I was about there saying, yeah, we're going to have to go. We have to go there and win. And I think when people say that, they obviously regard the sort of top of the table, in mind, and being in and with a chance of still being there. Were you of that same mindset, Neil? And after the game, do you seeing everything, do you still support whatever mindset you had?
I would have said ordinarily yes. I would have felt that way, that it's a must-win to keep in touch with the top of the tree. We've said quite a lot recently that, or spoken a lot of how important it is to stay in touch, because the levels have gone up so much, and they rarely, the City and the Liverpools of these days rarely drop points. So when they do, you must try and take advantage of it. Otherwise, before long, you'll be too many points behind to mount any kind of title challenge. But more than that, it's trying to restore some kind of confidence and momentum within your own club, because we have been struggling, as you mentioned, after the previous international break. What have we done? I can't remember if Preston was after that or before, but that seems to be the only win I can remember recently.
Sorry, we did beat Preston in the break.
Yes, so that's it. That's it. And we need to be trying to regain some sort of form and consistency. So it just builds up confidence. So that was more of it from my point of view. And I think from the last pod that we were on, and we mentioned what you said to me off air on WhatsApp, and saying that, look, I just want to try and just take each game in its own kind of, not look at the bigger picture, just take one game at a time and try and enjoy it, because otherwise we're just going to get too involved and too caught up in title challenges. And when it goes wrong, it's just quite upsetting to keep thinking about it and looking at it from that point of view. So I think I was, if you hadn't said that to me, Jack, I probably would have been more, damn, we've got to win, and oh my God, no, we haven't. Now, the way I view it is, I think there was an improvement in what we've seen recently. For me, I think there was a slight improvement on Newcastle with the game against Inter. Slight, not majorly, but this game certainly. And I think one of the biggest proponents of that was having Odegaard back. But I'm sure we're going to talk about all of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll definitely get an Odegaard. I mean, just an incredible player. I mean, I think we've seen in the break how reliant Mikel Arteta is on him, but I think you saw in this game just how much of a leader he is for our collective group. And if anyone questions his importance, they're looking pretty silly right now. I mean, but we will talk about him, because we'll talk about whether we've done the right thing in the 10 weeks or so that he's been out. And I don't underestimate how difficult that's been and how difficult it would be for any side to have a top player like that out. But I'm still in two minds as to whether Arteta has done everything he could have done in those 10 weeks to use the squad that he's got at his disposal that he has presented himself with, to be perfectly honest. We'll get into that. But yeah, I mean, Neil, it leaves us, honestly, this is the first time I've really looked at the table because of the break and stuff like that. I don't really look, not wanting to look at it the last few weeks, but it leaves us 9 points off the pace. Liverpool obviously, winning every game at the moment, and even City are 5 points off them. City struggling. They're much more engaged with the top of the table than we are, but they've lost 4 on the bounce, I think it is, in all competitions. So they're really, really struggling. I mean, I'm kind of on the mindset that I have been all season really, that Liverpool are very, very dangerous and just a bigger challenger as City. I think a lot of fans may look at it and look at City, but I don't think we're dealing with the same Manchester City. I really don't. Once Rodri got injured in our game, I think you've seen a drop off in them. Even though they were winning games for a while after that, and so I guess it's hard. I mean, the data says there's never been a team, even at this stage, that's turned over a 9-point deficit. I don't think it's happened in the Premier League. I'm almost certain I saw a stat that said that, which is then those stats are there for a reason, I guess. But definitely an improvement. I think, like you said, the biggest thing for us is to try to get back to some sort of familiarity of the way we're playing football, because we've had a really difficult start, Neil. I mean, we've had 11 games. We've had I don't want to say we've had the worst run ever, but we've definitely had some really tough games in there. Chelsea away, City away, Newcastle away, Villa away, Tottenham away. I think we've played in those 11 games, is it 9 out of the top 10 or something crazy like that?
Yeah, I think it was 6 of the top 10 that finished last season, and 5 of them away, or something stupid like that. So
yeah, exactly. And I think the only teams we've not played in the top 10 is Fulham, I believe. Is the only team we've not played in the top 10 from what I'm seeing, looking at it. So, it's definitely been a tough run. No doubt. And it's not necessarily getting any easier. We've got to play Forest next, who are on a tremendous run. But, Neil, we'll go back to that a little bit. But in terms of this game, obviously Odegaard came back into the team. We set up with, what some people would argue in this game, for all our injury issues, maybe, something quite close to our first 11. And I think you saw it. I think we were. I mean, the better for me. We edged the game. I'm not sure we did enough to win it, but we edged the game overall. We were the better side. What I was quite encouraged about was at 1-1. I felt we really were trying to go for the game. And Chelsea are a much, much better team than they were last season. And to be fair, we struggled there last season. We had, I would argue, a much worse performance there last season, but came away with a point. We were dreadful for 70 minutes. And then, Rice scored from distance and it changed the game a little bit in our favour. But in this game, I thought overall, we were much better. Neil, the first half was a game of sort of few chances. Cole Palmer had a shot from distance. Gusto had a really good header. It was probably their best chance of the game, to be honest. I think Martinelli just does enough to put him off, maybe. Though I'm not super delighted with the way Ben White stopped the cross coming in. And I think he's had a difficult season as well, and that might be a discussion point. What was your thoughts on the first half, Neil? It was a game, the Havertz chance was so unfortunate, wasn't it? Because it was a great, quickly taken free kick. We caught them by surprise. Great roll by Havertz and finishing. You wanted him to have that goal so badly. You could tell he wanted it. He was getting, dog's abuse at Chelsea Stadium again. And that was a little bit unfortunate, but it was offside, wasn't it? But I thought as the first half wore on, we developed more control in the game.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree. I think they started off the better. They came onto us on the front foot for sure. As you quite rightly said, I mean, Cole Palmer had that chance where it was quite a bit of a long range effort, and it wasn't a bad one actually. Then I think Neto set up, as you said again, that what should have been a first goal for them. The header that went, I don't know what happened. I think he hit it over. I can't remember what he did, but he should have scored because that was quite a good cross. But you're right, Ben White. I don't know what he was doing. And just quickly touching on him, I think White and Rice have both struggled this season, to be quite honest with you. And I'm not quite sure what is wrong with either of them. I don't get it. You can argue about international fatigue and all of that stuff for Rice, but you can't argue that with White because you don't do international. So I don't know what quite the reason is. I don't know whether something can change within. I don't know whether Rice has been picked for the squad for international duty. Has he? Do you know?
No. Rice and Saka pulled out, but so did about 9 other players from different clubs. City have pulled everyone out. Chelsea.
So
everyone.
Okay, so maybe they can all try and, I don't know, maybe Arteta can do something a little bit akin to what he did last season when he took them all on a trip. I'm not saying they go on a trip again because a lot of our players are still on international duty, but maybe something can happen, but something isn't quite right. But yeah, sorry to digress, but I think going back on the game, they started the better, but then I think we slowly came back into it, and then we started creating chances, and I think a lot of it is down to the leadership of Odegaard, the fact that he was influencing any kind of forward play yet again when like he did when obviously before he went off because of the injury and his absence for so long. And he's just got leadership qualities. We've always said he's not one of the most vocal, but he leads by example what he does, and being able to find pockets, make space for himself, and it just shows exactly what we've been missing. And I think right from the first half, he was making things happen for us and giving us those chances and opportunities. Wasn't there one where Martinelli should have done better, and he struck it right at the keeper when he should have maybe hit it a bit harder and put his laces through it, and maybe kept it more on the ground, a bit like his goal in the second. But he should have maybe done that in the first. That again, I think Odegaard had some involvement in that. So he made things change, and I just love the way that he can control a game without being a crazy mad vocalist, rather than doing it with his feet. And you could just see him gesturing straight away from the off. He's making them go forward or trying to influence them to go forward. That's what I love about him. It's just incredible. And Kai Havertz, I know he hasn't scored. He's not scoring like he went like that rich vein of form he was on, but I'm not getting on his back. I think you said it to me that he looks a little bit tired, but he still does try. And that goal was an example of a goal that wasn't given by virtue of being slightly offside. But I think that look how he uses his strength for that goal. I think there was 2 or 3 of them right surrounding him, and he still manages to get by them and put the ball in the net. It was actually a good finish if you think about it. And it's quite clever from Rice. I think it was Rice that took the free kick. It was one of the better things that he did do. Yep. It's just unfortunate that I think he was leaning offside with his chest or something. It wasn't quite his feet. I'm not quite sure, but it was just unfortunate. And I think that showed that we came back into the game after their aggressive start. And I was feeling confident going into half-time. So, yeah, better performance from us for sure.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot the Martinelli chance in the first half. And I think a lot of our really good chances, and I do actually think we edged the chances, to be honest, but because when you think about, we'll get to it, but the 2 in the second half that were both given offside, and I think one of them was in Gabriel Jesus being offside, but the other one, sadly, I'm not certain it was, and it would have been an extensive review for that last second chance that both of which of these chances Trossard ended up missing, so we'll get to his performance as well. But I'm sure you were like me. We were all falling over at that point, like Arteta, and that is the way the season's gone for us a little bit, Neil. Is those fine margin moments where at this stage last season they were going for us. The last minute goal against Luton, the 2 last minute goals against Man U at home. We've had a lot of those moments, and almost all of them have gone against us, if you think about it, right? The City one, last minute they score. Liverpool pretty late on, they get an equaliser. This game, at 1-1, we really should have won it when you look at those chances, I think. And yeah, those are 6-7 point swings. And it's tremendously frustrating. But I think when you do look at the whole season and all the things and everything like that, I think you saw Arteta at the end of the game, and he kind of, for the first time, he really kind of exuded some sort of frustration in the first 8 weeks of the season. He was like, he kind of compared it to a car, I think, or something. And he said, every time I think we've got it going, the wheels start falling off. You got to change I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, every time we try to get something going, we've had a problem, a setback, and I think obviously he was referring to the injuries, probably the suspensions, players not being fully fit and being needed to be played because of other injuries and so on. And it just feels it's kind of accumulated. I think it's easy from our perspective to just look at that and be like, other fans may look at that as excuses, but it's also sort of like just reasoning. You're just looking at it going, yeah, it really has been this sort of way so far this season. And the hope is we get players back and we kick on again. I think my biggest concern up until this game was performances for me were very, very patchy, and the football was patchy at times. And I really get this sort of, frustrated when I see games like the Bournemouth game and the Newcastle game where we're just not creating for long spells. This certainly wasn't one of those games, I didn't feel. I mean, Chelsea are a much better side. They're defensively much better. He's got them, playing a much better style of football. They don't really play another tournament, let's be honest. They rotate their whole side. They don't even put their first team members in that squad. He's kind of got two teams there. Luxury of having that when you've spent $2 billion, I guess. And so they had a full week's rest. We went to Inter Milan. It was very, very different. And I thought, to be honest, I got a text from a Chelsea fan at the end of the game saying, I think we deserve to win that. And I went, I think a draw was a fair result, and you definitely did not deserve to win it based off of the play. In fact, in the last 20, there was only one team really trying to win that game. If you look at them, there was a lot of stoppages, a lot of time wasting, I thought, which is fine, but I think it showed where the two clubs are at, and I thought they were much more satisfied with the point than we were from my perspective. I felt that, and fair enough. But I think when you look at it, and I've heard some of Gary Neville's commentary and stuff like that, very much disappointment in Arsenal, and I thought, well, hold on, we're not dealing with plucky Chelsea here. They're a team that should be at the top of the league. So, what were your thoughts on Martinelli, Neil? Missed chance in the first half. I felt quite frustrated with him again for large periods where I felt Gusto, a bit like Cucurella on the other side, so I'm not leaving Saka out of it, had the better of him. But as the game grew on, he got that chance. He took it really, really well. He clearly loved, the goal. It was a big chance to take on. But I still want more from him, Neil, overall in the game. I'm left wanting more still.
I couldn't agree more, Jack. I just think he's lost his fear factor for the opponents. I just don't think it's there anymore. I think he's too predictable. I've supported him from the start, very much like Trossard, and I feel very disappointed with them both. I'll be quite honest with you. Recently, I just can't. I wish there was an explanation. Very much again, what we mentioned earlier with White and Rice. I just don't know what is the issue. I saw glimpses of Martinelli coming back. He got a bit of form back, and then again he had a bad game, and then again now he scored one. Which hopefully has helped. But you want your forward to give the defenders maybe 8 times out of 9 or 8 times out of 10 problems rather than 2 or 3, and that's what I feel from him. So if he gets 10 moments where he's going forward, I think most of them they can deal with quite easily, as you said, with him, Gusto, and it was able to take care of him quite relatively easily. And that just tells me that there's nothing that he's doing which is out of the extraordinary. Really, he's not doing something which is going to say to the opposition manager, we've not seen that from him before. We've looked at the tapes and we've studied how we can counter this attacker. And oh my God, look what he's done, because he's come up with something different. And I just feel that, yes, he's got pace, which can be frightening at times, but he used to do a lot more with that for me, and he doesn't do it anymore. And then the worst thing is, when he does get an opportunity, he's not taking them. Yeah, he scored a couple of goals recently, Jack, but for me, it's not enough. For someone in his position, and I'm not just having a go at him. I think our whole forward lineup isn't firing at the moment. And yeah, again, we can maybe say that we haven't got the creativity behind it, but still, forwards have got to be, for me, getting into double figures at the very minimum, Jack. And some of them don't even get to double figures, and it's not good enough. Yeah, we had that one season a couple of seasons ago where Martinelli hit 15 goals, but you got to be doing that consistently. Henry was doing it consistently. Even Alan Smith back in the day under George Graham was doing it consistently. We just don't have that in any of our players, really. Yeah, Saka's the only one that you can say is the one that always gets the numbers, but we need more than that in this league. And him, for me, he's not frightening enough anymore. He's just lost that edge. I don't know what it is, mate. I don't know. We've argued that he hasn't had a consistent player behind him. He hasn't had Xhaka, all of that kind of thing. But he's still got to make a go of something when he's one-on-one with a player near goal. And he's not doing it enough for me, to be quite honest. That's it.
Yeah, and the problem is, look, great goal. Odegaard was fantastic. He wins the ball back from Lavia in midfield with his press. And that's the amazing thing about Odegaard is he's not a physical specimen at all, but he's such a leader of how we press. And the way he does it, and it's just all about his body positioning and his energy and his work rate, and he wins balls back like that just by zones that he feels and cutting off certain passes and things like that. And he does it again here, not super high up, but then he wins it. Partey does quite well to kind of keep it alive, and Odegaard just lays this beautiful ball on. It could have been for Saka, it could have been for Martinelli. It doesn't matter at that point. And they leave their line a little bit off, and their goalkeeper's really poor for me. And I think that was a slight frustration for me. I think we were texting throughout the game. We were like, we're having a lot of the ball here. We've got to test this goalkeeper more because he's poor, and you saw that on the goal as well. You shouldn't be getting beat in the post there for as good a finish it is. But like you said, Martinelli, I'm the same. I don't think he kind of puts that fear factor into I think he feels very one-dimensional, and I'm not sure. I think Mikel Arteta knows this. I'm pretty convinced that Mikel Arteta has felt this way for about 12 months. And I don't know yet, obviously with the Edu removal and things like that, maybe things will become a little bit clearer. But I don't quite know why we haven't pulled the trigger on signing an attacker. It's bewildering to me. Since 2020, we've spent 65 million. Since Arteta came in, we've spent 65 million on attackers. To put that in perspective, Bournemouth basically spent that this summer on attackers, right? So Tottenham spent it this summer on Solanke. And I know that the Havertz is the slot, but we didn't buy him as a centre forward. We didn't buy him as one. So it's not, Mikel Arteta didn't buy him with that intention. So there's only two possibilities. Either Mikel Arteta doesn't want to buy attackers, which I don't believe, or all the ones that he wants to buy have not been available. Or we've not been willing to spend the money on those specific attackers for whatever reason. But if you go through the ones that we've been linked to, Rafinha, Neto, Nico Williams, Sesko, we've gone for a lot of those players. We've just not got them. And my hope is that, I'd love it to be January. I don't believe it will, but that just has to be the next thing that he does. He has to go and get that elite attacker in, because like you said, Saka is elite. I think if we win anything, I had this argument with my brother, if we win anything, Saka will be a starting forward in this team. I have no debate, no question about it. I'm convinced that if we do win something, Saka will be a starting forward in this team. But I'm not 100% convinced about anyone else there. I think Kai Havertz could well be. I think he showed it enough. And I think, that if Mikel Arteta could just stick to keeping him at attack and stop making him drop in and do silly things, then I think he'll be right there. But I'm less and less convinced on Martinelli. And even goals like this don't convince me, because I look at his overall play and I think we're needing, you're not providing enough for us. It's not good enough. It's not good enough, in the game. It's not good enough. And it's a shame. Even if you look at their goal, Neil, obviously we don't hold the lead for long enough, do we? We don't, it's 5-10 minutes. And, that's another thing we've said this season. And for all the improvements in our defence in terms of personnel, we're so leaky. We switch off. We get full punishment when we switch off. I'll say that much. Every time we switch off for a second, we get completely punished. City last second, punished. I mean, we get full punishment. But in this one, Rice and Partey are, I know it's from a corner and it kind of, but they're still in the back line. Martinelli switches off for me. Havertz is a bit lazy. It's a culmination. Timber and Gabriel do their best, but it's not really on them, is it, Neil? It's collectively, it's just, we just went to sleep, didn't we?
It was a collective. I just thought he was given far too much space. Odegaard creates space just because he's just special and he can do it. This guy had space, too much space. And initially it was Martinelli just standing there watching the ball. I don't know what he's doing. He could have kind of closed him down a bit. He didn't do anything. And then after, just as he was about to lay the shot off, I think you said Gabriel probably couldn't have done anything, but it was Gabriel and Partey that could have moved in towards him to just close that gap, even if it still meant he didn't, lead to saving it, but it could have distracted him, and they didn't. They just, again, it was only Timber was the only one. I think I remember saying on the WhatsApp, he was the only one that tried to run in to stop the guy. The O3 didn't do anything, and from the corner, they were all back. All our players were back. So what were they doing? And how can you have that much space from a set piece? It was awful. I mean, look, the finish is unquestionable. It was a great goal. Again, we've had that again. We talked about that, the Bournemouth goal, and I think, was it the Newcastle goal with that cross that they put in for Isaac to score, and now Neto. And Isaac and Neto are two of the guys that I think you were talking about for getting to our team, weren't you? That's the irony of it all. The goal was fantastic. What a finish. I mean, if that reminded me of one that I think Odegaard scored, I think last season. It's just beautifully struck. I don't think Raya could have done much about it. No. But I felt we gave them too much space. And I think three of our players could have moved in and done a little bit more. Martinelli was the worst, though. Because you watch it on the replay, he's just watching the ball. He's not even moving. He's just standing there looking at it, thinking, oh, what do I do here? I feel like I'm, this might be I'll get on Martinelli's back show, but it's not. I just feel that his performance at the moment, what were we saying? That's the irony as well. Okay, he's not doing too much going forward, but he actually isn't bad in defence. Remember we said that a couple of pods ago?
Yeah.
Oh, unfortunately, he didn't do much for this goal to help the situation. So, yeah, I've no arguments for the strike itself. I thought it was a great goal, great, well-taken goal. But I think the build-up to it, there was a lot left to be desired from us. And you're right. We thought we've sorted things out in the defence, and we had such a great defensive record up until, I think, City, when they scored the two goals for the draw. But since then, I think we've just capitulated a little bit in defence, Jack. We are letting in silly goals. We used to say we let in silly goals. If they score a good goal, a really good goal, you can have little complaints. But we let in silly goals, and I think we're starting to go back to that a bit. I still feel in all areas we've aggressed 2 seasons, Jack. But fair play, they scored it, but I thought the reaction wasn't bad actually from us following the goal.
No, and then at that point, it was obviously 1-1, and we knew we needed to win the game, and maybe they didn't feel they needed to as much. So it could be sort of that too. But at that point, we make a few subs, a couple of enforced ones. Obviously, Rice has got the toe injury, believed to be a broken toe, though not confirmed by Mikel Arteta. And fair play to him, though. I would say people are giving him a pass on the toe injury for this game. I do think there's a bigger question mark over Rice over the whole season. I mean, you know me. I've said it for a couple of weeks on the podcast. I don't think it's good enough from him. For 105 million, I don't think we should be questioning where do we fit in Declan Rice to our team. I don't think we should be doing that. And this change was enforced, but I honestly think, I hope Mikel Arteta learned a little bit. Now, look, I don't think Declan Rice is not a starter for our team. I'm convinced he's a starter for our team. So I'll get that straight. But at the moment, I think we need to be able to look at Declan Rice and the way he may be playing in some games and be able to do that sub intentionally, not because his body's not being able to cope with it, but go, you're not doing it for me right now, Declan, and I'm going to change it. Because to be honest, as much as Partey may have been as much a fault for, as everyone else for that goal, he has been our best central midfielder. Even in this game, he was our best central midfielder until Moreno came on, to be honest. He's been our best central midfielder on the ball. There is an argument from a lot of fans that we weren't shipping this many simple goals when Thomas Partey wasn't in the team earlier last season. And I get that point. I do think there is something about him being in the team that makes us defensively more vulnerable. I definitely see that, but I can't directly attribute it to him specifically in terms of his performance. I definitely think, at times he can be a bit more wayward on the pass, and from the sixth position, he definitely doesn't have the recovery speed that Declan Rice has or the dual winning abilities overall. But he's been our best midfielder, and what I thought really interesting, Neil, was I thought Moreno's performance was really interesting in this game. I just thought he came on. I thought he provided a much more sort of variety to his passing, much more vertical passing, much more, sort of dagger-like passing straight into the front line. And in terms of his sort of distribution, I was watching him and I was like, I see some Xhaka in you in this game, to be honest. But what I really like about him as well is I think that box crashing stuff, he almost got on the end of one of Saka's and probably should have done better. But every time I've watched him recently, even when he's been relatively poor, like against Inter, I thought he was quite poor and he came off at half-time. But the amount he crashes the box, and gets into the box, I'm like watching him going, you're going to get a fair amount of goals for us. I just can't see how you're not. And what I saw in this game was, on the ball, you can do a little bit. You were receiving the ball from deep and you were turning and swiveling. And for the first time, I thought Mikel Merino looked like really, really comfortable in the position we were playing in him. And I think I've been reluctant to be super critical of him yet because it's been so early. A lot of Arsenal fans have been critical, but I really like this performance, Neil. What about you?
Yeah, it was. I think he gave us a renewed kind of energy when he came on, which we didn't have before. I think we took control of the game. Most of the second half, we were the better team. I think you're right. Let me just go back to the result. The 1-1's probably the fairest result. But I think we were certainly the team that were trying. They stood back. They weren't going for to try and get the win. They started on the front foot at the beginning of the match, and they ended it. I think just playing a back line really, and letting us maybe giving them the chance of maybe a counter or something like that. But realistically, I think they were just happy with the 1-1. I think they thought that their job was done. But that doesn't mean that. That's why we had more of the opportunities. I think the change with Merino coming on was a big factor in that. I think he's really strong, Jack. He's quite a big lad, and the way he kind of strides through the pitch, he kind of eats it up very quickly. He's just this big presence for me. I don't think he's the tallest in the group, but he feels like a big presence. And I think he can. I think he can. He's got another mindset. It's quite interesting that you liked him with Xhaka. I didn't actually see it that way, but yeah, I see what you mean. Xhaka of our last season, the good Xhaka that we had, it reminds me of him a little bit. You're quite right. And he was doing the stuff that we were kind of seeing from Rice last season. And he's not been really doing it this season for whatever reason that is. He just hasn't been doing it. And I think that actually he might be the better option in some games. I think initially I was thinking that he would be more of a rotational player to give our players a bit of a break because we've got so many blooming games every single week. But now I'm thinking maybe it might actually be more of a strategic decision and a tactical decision to actually play him more in the midfield at the moment. Until Rice, we can sort whatever issue is going on with Rice.
Sorry to interrupt you. Do you think the intention is to get Rice back at the 6 and Merino at the left? Because a lot of people said at the start of the season, well, I think he's going with Rice, Merino, Odegaard. Obviously, we've not had those three players available until now. This is the first game I think they've all been there. But because when Odegaard was fit, Merino was out, etc. But do you think that is the intention? And do you have any sort of concerns? Because let's be honest, Rice hasn't been that convincing at the 6, certainly not in recent times anyway. Start of last season, I think that is where we played him from. And that was where it was Odegaard. And who was playing? I don't even know who was playing at the left 8 at that point. I can't even remember at the start of last season. I'd have to look back.
Last season was Havertz, wasn't it?
Sorry, it was. Sorry, of course it was. It was Havertz. And that was, we thought that was the issue. Havertz was the issue there. I tend to still agree that is our intention, but I'm not sure how to balance the team in order to make Rice flourish at a 6, because then you get concerned about his ability to distribute the ball correctly, and that's where his weakness is, or it certainly seems to be. So it's an interesting balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that is the intention, because I don't think Arteta probably thought very much like we did, that as Partey got the legs, is Partey going to be able to sustain game in, game out? But he's doing it. It's actually surprised all of us. He's, as you said quite rightly, even in this game, I think he's been our best midfielder this season by far. It's not even a small gap. There's a massive gap. And I think that probably was the intention. I don't think Arteta probably expected this of him. And that's why he brought him in, maybe, that Mourinho will play the 8 and Rice will now bed in a position of the 6. Whether he's good at it or not, or he's happy with it or not, then maybe he'll have to kind of acclimatise to that position. But then, of course, when Partey is fit for those games, Rice can play, change up 8 and 6, 8 and 6, 6 and 8, whichever way it works. But I just don't think he's comfortable in either position at the moment, Jack. He's just not in form. So yeah. I don't think it's a question of is he playing in the right position. I just don't think he's on form. I think there's something not right. And you can't talk about the toe, because the toe's only just happened, isn't it? It's not been there right from the start of the season. There are some serious considerations with Rice at the moment, and I don't know what it is, because he was an amazing player for us last season. It was a lot of it was down to him. So where we were last season, challenging right till the end. So I don't know what the answer is, Jack, and I don't know if I've paused there. Have I paused?
No, sorry.
Okay.
I was engaging with your thought.
So I don't know what it is, but I do like what have seen in Mourinho. He is going to score goals. You can clearly see that, because he's getting up there. He's getting himself into the box, but he's doing much more than that. I think even the passage of play beforehand, he has a lot in, and I think his off the ball movement is quite good as well. So I think there's a player there, but if we're struggling with Rice at the moment, I wouldn't mind seeing Mourinho for a minute if Partey's fit.
Yeah, at the very least, the willingness and understanding that Rice, I think a lot of Rice's issues, unlike Ben White, unlike which I have bigger concerns with Ben White at fullback at this point. But I think a lot of Rice's issues are coming from fatigue. I think his game's so based around his engine. So, he had a long Euros. He went late into it. He didn't particularly play well, but he went all the way. And then when he came back, Rodri sat on the bench for 6 weeks. And obviously got the unfortunate injury, but Rice played every minute of every game from the start of the season, didn't he? And he played a ton of minutes last season as well. I mean, he was in, you all remember that table on Sky Sports where it was top 10 players in minutes, and all of ours were there, weren't they? Saliba, Gabriel, Rice, Ben White, Odegaard, Saka, they were all there. There was one City player, one Liverpool player in 6 of ours. And I don't think we can, look at that and think it hasn't have the overload effect on him, possibly. And I don't know how, I think this 2-week break could be fantastic for him. One is obviously his toe, but really just physically. The hard thing with Rice is what you see when he doesn't play regularly is he also looks rusty. So it's a really weird balance. You know what I mean? Like when he came in at the start of the season and didn't have a pre-season because he had a few weeks off after the Euros, he looked terribly rusty. So it was like, he's not one of those players that can just flow in. So it's very, very difficult to know. But I think this was encouraging to see us being able to take him off. Even if it was forced, because I think sometimes the team does need, and it showed that if you want to go for a game a little bit more, maybe he is a player you can take off, possibly. Typically, I think we would probably drop him deeper, and that is how we would progress, But it will be interesting to see whether we do try to get him back into the 6 and Mourinho into the 8, and whether we do that for a big game. We did it for Liverpool, but we were forced into doing it because we had to play Partey at right back. We haven't done it where we've gone to Partey, you're going to sit now, and that will be interesting to see if that happens. I probably expect it to happen at some point, but when, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe after this international break he'll decide to do something like that. I don't know. Very hard to remove Partey at the moment, like you said, but really encouraged by Mourinho. I thought we looked just more open. We got a great chance for Trossard, slightly offside, maybe Gabriel Jesus. I thought Jesus was pretty poor when he came on, to be honest. I would say the one frustration I have with Saka, hopefully he's not hurt, but I do think sometimes he comes off a little too easily, and he's very aware of his body. He knows how to protect it, so I don't want to argue it. But sometimes I watch him and go, this game is a must-win for Kaya. We've got 15 minutes left here. Are you really hurt or not? Because I think, looking back at it, I think we win it if he stay on the pitch. I think he probably creates something in the last 15. He probably creates something for us, and we probably win it. I just think he's so important to us, and I think that's probably my bigger frustration is, we don't have anyone that can come on and cope with it. I think Cucurella handled him quite well. Man of the match was a bit over the top. I mean, Odegaard was man of the match. 4 key passes, 92% pass accuracy. Hadn't played since August. I mean, if you're a footballing fan, he was the man of the match. If you like seeing defenders, just run around like little road runners and stuff like that, then that's different. But Gary Neville's doing the voting, so what are you going to do? But thoughts on that? So maybe I'm being a bit harsh on Saka, Neil.
No, I don't think you are. I've probably read it wrong and stupidly, as I always do, but I thought maybe that was more tactical because Arteta wanted to protect him and not get him on international duty. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe he's seen the light.
His comments were interesting, weren't they?
Yeah.
Because he was like, well, I don't know. They don't look good. So I wouldn't... He kind of said, I wouldn't expect them to go on internationals if they had to come off. Yeah, and I thought, you're talking to the players directly there, aren't you? I bet they both looked at that and went, we better pull ourselves out, because if we go and start playing a game 2 days later, he's going to have some questions. And I actually love that comment from Arteta. I thought, that's exactly what you need to say. If you're coming off and you can't continue, because they both did, they both went, I'm done, then you're done for a couple of weeks, boys. And I thought that was terrific from him. Sorry, carry on.
Perfect. Yeah, we've been a bit critical of Arteta lately, but I think that was brilliant, actually. So I thought maybe, but you're right. I think what I liked about the game as well, which I think I should have mentioned earlier, is I saw that relationship between Odegaard and Saka again in the game. There was quite a bit of it, to be fair, and that's where our strong point is on that right hand side. It's hugely strong and influential when Odegaard comes on for us to be able to create more on the right. And I think I saw it, and that's incredible considering. You're right. He should have been man of the match because he was first in, I think, in quite a few of the categories. The chances created. I think it was passes in the box or possession. I don't know what that stat is. And of course, he assisted, 1 assist each. I think that was a little bit of a silly man of the match. I think Cucurella did all right, but I can't stand the guy.
Such a little whining toe.
I really cannot stand the guy. I'm sorry. I don't know. Maybe it's just his hair, and I just something about him. I just can't. I don't like him.
He's scum.
A horrible player. And when there was a chance of him being linked to Arsenal, I was like, I'm not going to watch Arsenal if he comes to Arsenal. I don't like him. Keep him away from our club. But to be fair to him, yes, he done all right, but not man of the match. I think Odegaard did that, and I think that's where I liked. Just one of the positives for me, because there are a few to take away from this game, Jack, and I love the link up that relationship he's got with Saka, and maybe that will really help us going forward now. Because look, I'm not thinking about titles or anything anymore. I'm not. I always do right at the start of the season, but I'm just going to get disappointed and upset myself all the time. I just want to watch it game by game and be impressed with what we do, and I saw positive there. But you're right. Maybe if Saka had stayed on, things could have happened. But it's just academic now, and there's nothing we can do about it. There were chances. I think even with his omission, we did have a couple of chances at the end, which maybe we should have put away and we should have scored. And I'm sorry to say, you were mentioning the forwards. I agree. Out of the lineup, Havertz and Saka are there. For me, Jesus, Martinelli and Trossard, and I'm going to get pelters for this, but they're just nowhere near good enough. Not good enough. And I don't know how I'm actually saying this, but if any of those three were to go in January, I don't think I'm going to be that upset. And maybe a few months ago, maybe the exception of Jesus, I would have been devastated. But I'm seeing nothing from any of those three, really. To even, as fans, we want to be excited when we watch a game. When we watch a game, it's exciting, isn't it? When we're saying, look at that chance, oh my God. The bit where it happens whether you're at home or in the stadium, you get off your seat. When they're going, all of a sudden they're, darting forward, down the line or through the middle or whatever it is. And then that, God, this could be a chance to do it. And you get off your seat. And I'm really sorry to say, Jack, but neither Jesus or Martinelli or Trossard are creating those feelings for me anymore. They're just not. And maybe I'm being harsh. Maybe it's a blip. Maybe things will change after the international break. And I hope I'm wrong. I always when I'm critical of a player or players, I always want them to prove me wrong. And I hope I'm blooming wrong. And I hope they're all set the world on fire after the international break. Because I love nothing more than Trossard and Martinelli. I've always backed them. But at the moment, no. And Trossard, I'm sorry, I know you probably wanted to come on to it, but oh my goodness me. He messed up that chance, which he should have put away, which I can't. All right, maybe it was offside to thank God, in a way.
You mean the first one where Gabriel crossed it, Marino does the flick?
Come on. You've got to be putting that in the net, or at least hitting the target, right? No. Right. And then the second one where you can talk about it, but I was disgusted by that. Sorry. Yeah,
it was a great move. I mean, it was such a well-built move. On the replay, it doesn't show half the move, but I remember watching it thinking, last minute here, last second, and we are tearing them apart just from, passing. We're just passing left to right, left to right, left. Sleeper was at left wing, and I think I threw my dining room chair across the room. I mean, I was so frustrated when he took that off him. I mean, I can tell he was so frustrated too, and he doesn't know Havertz is there. I get it. I mean, I've been in that position myself. I get it. You have to take that shot on. I understand, but if it was just the way the season's gone. The weird thing with the Trossard one was, you look at that, 2 chances, massive chances missed, both possibly offside, both, second one possibly not, and you just look at it and go, but this was actually a better performance from Trossard, and there's something about him when he comes off the bench. It's almost like he's so aggravated he didn't start, that he wants to prove everyone wrong. Like, he's got that attitude about him. You saw him against Villa, didn't you? When he came on, and ever since then he's been like a must start in Mikel's team. And you alluded to it, like, stop, appeasing this player, because he doesn't deserve to start all of these games, but he kept starting. And I agree. I don't think Trossard should be a must start player in our team. I think he's a squad player, but a very, very good one. And there's just something when you bring him on in a game where you need something. He's going to step up the level. And he has this sort of super sub, like Solskjaer had it, just this super sub like mentality. And there's real value in that. Like, there's real value in having that player. I mean, look how often we had like Eddie and Nketiah off the bench, and we were like, he's never doing anything. Like it was, there is real something in that. Look at Gabriel Jesus, where, let's be honest, we have no idea what we've got in this player anymore. I don't know what we've got. I think we've lost him. I think we've basically lost him. Because he comes on, he looks like he's like, basically, he's still disappointed he's not the main man at Arsenal, and that's long gone, way gone. And at this moment in time, I'm worried that we're not going to be able to remove the player, to be honest. That's where I'm at with him. I'm like, I'm not sure you're doing enough for someone else to want you, let alone us to want you. That's what I'm worried about, Gabriel Jesus. But I think you're right. I mean, the weird thing on Martinelli, Neil, is if Martinelli doesn't do it this season, I don't think we do it, because we don't have enough in the forward line to not have him do it. He has to have a season like he had 2 seasons ago for us to do something this season. And if he doesn't, we just don't have the firepower. Saka can't do it every week. Havertz can't do it every week, and at times Havertz, his type of game is more facilitator for everyone else. It's not always the person that's going to produce. He has to produce it, but and if that doesn't happen, and we don't move in January on someone, which is unlikely under Mikel Arteta, the way we've acted in previous windows, we don't typically go big in January, then we just don't have it. You look at the firepower Liverpool have got. They've got there's a reason the only teams that have won the league in the last 7 seasons have had the likes of Haaland or Salah in it. I mean, there's a reason, and before that, Mane and, the likes of Aguero and people like that, just absolute killers when it comes to the final third. And we don't have enough up there. It's still unfathomable to me that we didn't move on a top attacker once again, because we've wanted one for so many years under Arteta. And I think, but people will look at the window, and I'm not upset with the window we had as such, because I think Calafiori's a good signing. I think Mikel Merino will turn out to be a good signing. Sterling, the last minuteness of that is very frustrating at this point, because there's been some stuff come out this week about him maybe not applying himself very well in training and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, please, no, and obviously we're not losing out so much there, but I'd love us to do the last minute stuff on a defender like he does on attackers all the time. You know what I mean? Oh, last day of the window, I'll just get Sterling in. He never does that with defenders, does he? He never does that with defenders. He never goes, oh, I've forgotten about the defender. We might be one short here. We've done all the attack. He has to do that. He has to fulfill everything we need in attack, first and foremost. And if something comes up in defence because we sold a Kivior or a Zinchenko, do a last minute patch up. .com stuff. Why doesn't he do the reverse? He has to, because he needs that. He needs the culmination of Mikel Arteta's team is to get that one or two top attackers in, and I don't know why we've not done it. I can only assume that the one or two that he want have just never become available. It's tremendously frustrating though, Neil, isn't it?
100%, because I completely agree with everything you said, and I know you said that a lot this pod, but it's true. The Trossard thing, I agree as well, in the sense that how many times have I said and been vocal that he's not a starter, he's an impact sub, and I don't know why that frustrates him. I know players want to play all the time, I totally understand it, but if you're effective in your own self, surely you know that. You know what? Every time I come on, I'm making a difference to this team and to this club. I don't know why that's, in a way, I'm not saying you should be completely satisfied that and it's 100% good enough for you, but you can actually, sometimes you have your own way of looking at your own performances, don't you? And you can see that, actually, look, I think I'm better suited coming on as a substitute. Because, yeah, you're right. Look, I had a go at Trossard, I had a go at Martinelli and Jesus before you spoke. But I do agree. I think this is probably one of his best performances. But it's because he came on as a substitute. But still, having said all of that, you are completely right. We have not got that lethal forward. And your man, I'm now on board with that. God, he looks astonishing, that player.
He's a sporting striker.
Yes,
he's a machine, mate. He's a machine.
Oh my God, if there was any chance of getting the player in like him, I think that could solve a lot of our problems, because I was just taken aback with Whisper. That's the first time I've probably seen him. Maybe that's stupid of me not to really look at other players in other teams, but that performance against Man City, oh my God, Jack, what a player. And it kind of made it, stamped it even harder for me that was against Man City as well. It's just incredible. You know what my fear is? Because his manager has now gone to United. I'm wondering whether he's going to...
Yeah, I've had some people say that to me. The one thing I'll say for that is definitely, you've seen players follow managers, and it could definitely happen. But they have invested about 80 million in two new strikers.
True.
Man United. For them to, and they've got a lot of issues in that squad, for them to go and spend, he's got an 83 million release clause, which drops to 63 million in the summer, I believe. So I believe you'd have about a 20 million difference if I'm reading it right. But, if they were to move on that striker, it'd be really interesting to me to be like, okay, you basically spent 170 million on three players in the same position. I find that quite difficult to believe that even Man U, as stupid as they are, would do that. Do you know what I mean? Because that's a lot of money. But he's an absolute killer, Neil. And I think the reluctance from a lot of fans, because I think I had a discussion with Adam on here in the summer, and he was kind of not convinced by Gutierrez, and now he's doing it in the Champions League. Everyone's convinced about him, but
right.
I was like, I think that the issue is he played in the second tier of English football. He killed it for Coventry, but he was quite a late sort of bloomer. He didn't really come to the forefront until a bit like Ian Wright, if you like. I mean, we didn't sign Ian Wright till he was 27, 28, did he? Did we? And he ended up being one of the best strikers in the history of the club.
Well, he didn't turn pro until 21.
Of course, late pro, of course, and so a little bit of that part, obviously different, but a little bit of that part, that late pathway. And I think a lot of people are, you don't see that as often nowadays. So, but when you watch him, Neil, I mean, he's not just doing it in the Portuguese league, and he constantly outperforms his XG, which basically means he finishes chances that he shouldn't do on a regular basis.
Wow.
And I said to James actually on a chat today, I said, because he was like, we've got to do something in January, and I said the only player that I can see that is actually available to us out of all the ones we've been linked to, because we've been linked to Isaac and Sesko, is that player, because he's got a release clause. He's got a definitive release clause.
Don't get my hopes up, Jack.
Right, I know, but I wonder, Neil. I now the Edu stuff's happened. I wonder where the reluctance in actually spending on a forward has come from, because it's happened so many times. I had this sort of wonder in my head about the Pepe stuff, because Edu was around when that happened, wasn't he? And that Pepe deal, there was a lot of scrutiny on that Pepe deal, wasn't there? I know it was Real, but Edu was there. And I wonder if we've looked at that, and maybe even looked at the Mudryk stuff and how bad that's gone for Chelsea, and gone, wow, we really can't afford to get the big money on an attacker wrong again. I wonder, but then we've spent big money elsewhere, like Rice. It's the same thing, isn't it? Risk comes with everything. So I don't really know, but for some reason we've not pulled the trigger on an attacking signing, and I wonder where that's come from. Does this open up more pathways for us without Edu? Does it cut more because of his contacts? I don't know.
Maybe there may be a silver lining. I don't know, but Arteta has always been. I know for a fact he's been reluctant to get that, especially a centre forward. Because even Lacazette, he played as almost like he didn't want him being really at the front. He wanted him sitting deeper and doing that work there. So he's always had that reluctance. He had an issue with Aubameyang right from the start, realistically. And obviously Aubameyang went. But all right, the player was at fault for his antics as well. I get it. Yeah. But at the end of the day, he just doesn't seem to like those lethal finishes. So I thought, why not? I don't know, Jack. I'm not sure. And you're completely right. He's been more focused on defence and maybe midfield or centre defence, which is good because we need to build from the back. I don't have a problem with that at all. Any football team has to start with the foundation, and he's done that. To be fair to him, rather than constantly being hypercritical or related that I have been with Arteta, I've got to also appreciate what he has done in a positive way, and he has done quite a lot. So I'm not going to get away just because we've had a few bad matches. I'm not going to suddenly turn on the manager and the whole team and say, "Oh, look at it all." No, I'm not doing that one bit. I'm just saying it how I see it at the moment. Things are not quite right. We haven't got the balance that we did have last season. And yes, we are missing firepower up front, and hence why we are having this conversation now. And I have no idea why he's had this reluctance to get that player, because you're right, Eddie Nketiah. Him coming on as a sub, that ain't the answer. And yes, we've got rid of him, but we need someone now that just does the business all the time, consistently.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if it's got anything to do, if it has got anything to do with Edu, this could be a silver lining. It could. Yeah,
it's so hard, isn't it, to judge? I mean, what's your thoughts on that now? It's come out a little bit more, Neil. What's your thoughts on Edu? I regard Edu as a legend and an invincible, and I'm very thankful for everything he's done for our club both times he was there. But it does leave a little bit, and I think James disagrees with me a little bit on this, but it leaves a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, how you can walk in and basically, from what the sounds of it is, he basically walked in and handed his resignation in on the spot. He said, "I'm done." And one, that alludes to probably some issues behind the scenes. I find it difficult to believe it doesn't. But on the other hand, it leaves a little bit of sour taste in terms of where you've left the club at, because Mikel Arteta seemed surprised by it. All the backroom staff sounded quite surprised from it. I just wonder what your thoughts are on that, and I guess where it leaves us.
Yeah, I think initially, I don't know if you remember saying, I think it was on with you that I was reactive, and I was really upset with him, actually. And I was really angry with him. And it might have been on James's pod, I can't remember. And I said, I can't repeat what I was saying on the chat, and I won't repeat what I said on the chat. And maybe that was unfair, but that's just a reaction. That's just a fan, because I have had so much time for the guy. You've got to remember, what he's done as a player as well. And I just thought, why have you done that to us, especially at this moment of time? I just felt, I think, reaction-wise, Jack, it was like he was leaving a sinking ship almost. I thought, what are you doing? We're going through a bit of a rut here, and you just left. It's like, what? But when you've had a few days to calm down and think about it, you think, right, let's be a little bit more pragmatic about it. He's done a lot of good stuff. He certainly has. Him coming in has been the best thing that we've had in that upper tier for years, Jack. We had no one footballing wise up there in the directorship. And I feel that they were all very selfish and they weren't really there for the interest of the club, maybe bar a couple of people up there. And he came in and I think he really took the ball by the horns, really. So let's applaud him for what he's done. He has turned things around. But it does concern me the way that he's just up and gone. You see, do you remember it was announced when we were doing our pod, right? Last time. And at the time we were thinking, is it going to be immediate or is he actually going to see out the season and all? But then it just transpires he's gone. For that to happen, something has gone wrong. Now, whether there's been a disagreement of ideas, which I think is probably the most likely, I know there's a lot of talk that there was an opportunity that he couldn't miss, but surely when you've got contracts in place, the people that are looking to take you on have to be understanding of that and respectful of that and think, okay, that's fine, finish your year, and then, at least then they'll have a chance to adjust, plan for someone else or plan for your successor. For it to happen this way, I don't think it's the attractiveness of a deal that he couldn't miss. So it's got to be something for me internally. Again, this is just hindsight. I don't know. I'm just picking something out of the sky here, but I feel that something internally has happened. So I think it's a case of a conflict of ideas and vision. And I don't know whether it might even be with Arteta. I don't know. And then weren't you guys, because again, I don't really go into this too much, but weren't you guys having a chat on the group that, he was not listened to about certain things that he wanted to happen? They just completely ignored him and just went and did what they wanted to do. Again, we're not behind the scenes. We can't know if this is true or not. But for me, the way it looks, something has gone on which has caused a conflict. And he's just said, you know what? If you're not going to listen to me, I'm done. So that is a concern. Do you not think in the infrastructure of the club?
Yeah, I have a little concern there. I mean, you'll remember what it was like when Dean left and Wenger never really got that person back in again. It's hard to find those relationships. And I found Kroenke's comment on the club website quite interesting. Did you read that at all? He kind of said, respect Eddie's decision, thank him for his immense contribution and dedication to drive the club forward. Everyone at the club wishes him well. Change and evolution is part of our club. We remain focused on our strategy and winning major trophies. Our succession plan will reflect this continued ambition. Now, that last sentence, because we were talking about, will we do an internal? And I think we have done initially an internal sort of appointment where we've sort of, moved his assistant into that position and things like that. But it sounds to me like we will appoint someone, in that position, which I'm encouraged about, to be honest. I think I was worried that it would be more of an internal thing and that may give Arteta too much autonomy. I'm worried about going down the Wenger route of giving him too much focus away from the pitch. Wenger was doing everything. He was building the stadium. He was doing the transfers. He was, it was too much. And, he was never going to say it was too much, but to me, it takes too much off the pitch. Mikel Arteta should definitely have a say in transfers, but you should also have someone that sort of checks and balances him. Apparently, some of the disagreements were over Marino and his age and his profile.
Oh, okay.
Apparently. So we don't know, but we also don't know where the disagreements were in forwards and things like that. The one thing I would say is I really don't, if we were planning on doing something in January, I really don't I hope it doesn't hurt our ability to do that. But in theory, if we're going to do something big in January, because we can no longer do the Trossard type signings. We can no longer do the plan B squad filling type signings in the forward line. It's so evident that what we need is the elite attacker, whether it's a winger or a striker. I think we need both. So logic tells us that's big money. And if it's big money, we're going to have to make sales. And, who can we logically sell in January? The one thing I would say is I do not care, where that position of player is that we sell. Like, a lot of people saying, well, you have to sell a striker to buy a striker. I'm done with that. We can stockpile left backs the length of the world, so we can stockpile, a Sterling for 6 months or a Jesus for 6 months if it means getting the elite striker in. So if it means selling 2 defenders to get a striker in, I'm sorry, someone has to tell Mikel Arteta it needs to be done. Like, basically, because that is what is needed. We have stockpiled. So let's be honest, Calafiori looks great, but was he really needed on the squad? Like,
No.
did we not have enough left backs on the book? We had plenty. Do you know what I mean? So I'm sorry. We're sitting here going, you've never signed a central striker since Gabriel Jesus, and he's not, he doesn't even feature now. Like I'm beyond that. So if it means getting a Kivior off the books or a Zinchenko off the books to get the striker in, then we've got to do what it takes. The real worry is who is available in our squad that people would really want. I think the logic said, someone like Kivior is probably top of that list. Can see lots of teams wanting a Kivior. Is that enough to get in a top striker? Probably not. You probably need one more sale in there, don't you? But whether that's a Zinchenko or a Trossard, like you said, or a Gabriel Jesus, then I'd be, looking at it. So what we really need before January, if something is to happen, is these players to be linked away strongly, I presume. You know what I mean? If we start getting these players linked away, then I'd be like, we wouldn't sell them for nothing. So what's happening on the other end? So all time to tell. I mean, hopefully the appointment, Arteta has a little bit of a say in what he wants, but hopefully there's some oversight on that to bring in someone that really, is able to meet or make Arteta halfway and look at everything he does objectively, and not just allow him free for all in terms of the transfers, because I don't think that's good for any manager to just be able to just do.
We've been dead on that. We're not doing that again. Doesn't work.
So I wonder if we make that appointment before January, or maybe we make the appointment before January for the summer. I don't know. Are you worried? Change in a club is never a great thing, even at this level. So I wonder about process and things like that, and and where we're at. I mean, do you buy into the fact that this is a really key season for Arteta in terms of winning something? Where are you at? Because James. James offline, he's like, he's got to win something or he's got to go for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not there, but where are you at with that kind of stuff?
I'm hanging off the fence on it. Only because, not because I've got it in for Arteta. I think I've already said this. For me, the worry is, I think you made a good counter argument. I can't remember, but I still feel that if we don't pick up any silverware this season, not again, please, for the record, I'm not a trophy hunter. My reasoning is deeper than that. My reasoning is that I think that we could lose one or two big players, which will then destabilize us again, and we're going to go back again. We are a team building for not just the now, but the next few, the short-term future, or the short to mid-term future. Maybe not long-term, because no one's loyal anymore these days. So let's say short to mid-term. We can't do that if couple of our key big players then say, do you know what? I love the club. I love everything about it, but I need to win things. I'm at that stage in my career where I'm on top of my game, and I need to go to a club which has got that winning mentality. Well, not winning mentality, but they actually can get past the line, get over the line, and become a serial winner, which we're certainly not. Winning one cup here and there is not enough, Jack, for a club of our size. For me, that's the issue, more than that Arteta will go or has to go, because if we then lose players, I think it's going to destabilise us. We're going to go back to square one again. It feels like we've done that already now in this little bit of a rut we're in, but I'm hopeful that, with Odegaard coming back, and maybe now the dust will settle with this Edu departure, things will start stabilising again. And I think we're all, I don't know, the last couple of days I felt better about the club again. I think we'll be all right. I think we're going to be a bit of a challenge for teams after the international break. So I'm not overly concerned about that. My worry is the actual infrastructure. I hope we can get a replacement in at the top, and I hope that works very, very quickly and settles a lot of nerves if there are any concerns. And then playing-wise, maybe we can do something. But I'm sitting on the fence about the Arteta thing. It's nothing personal against him, because I think he's done a lot of good for us. But my thing is, I'm going to be quite honest, he ain't going to go anyway.
That's why I said to James.
The board, no matter what we think as fans, so
it's a moot point. Yeah.
It's a moot point, because I could turn around and say to you, well, I completely agree with James, or I completely agree with you. But at the end of the day, Jack, let's be honest, it's irrelevant what I think, right? Because he's signed a contract, number one, and number two, I can't see us not getting top four. Look, I say we're going to win everything. I'm not saying we're going to win the league. And
James made that argument to me as well. He said, what if we drop out the top 4? I said, I'll still be surprised. Very surprised.
Oh, okay, fine. All right, so you're going even further than that. But I actually think we're going to get top 4. I can't see we're going to not get top 4. I think we'll get top 4, Jack. And if that happens, he ain't going. Even if they were thinking about it, he ain't going anywhere. Yeah. So he's not going to go anyway. So my if that's the case, we have to get this director in to help. Or replacement for Eddie, whatever you want to call it, director of football, whatever the blooming term is. I don't care what they're called. Just get someone in that can help Arteta, not leave, not create another Arsene Wenger situation when David Dean left, and then focus on the players. And like you said, I think with the whole, I don't think there's not anyone in the football Arsenal fan base which would disagree that we need someone up front. And I actually, with you, I think actually we need 2. Not one.
We do. We need to.
Ideally, I'd want 3 if we could.
Which is why I'd move in January on 1. We're not going to spend 160 million on 2 forwards in summer.
No way.
So
no way.
Move in January on 1. Do you know, that's where I'm at with it. You know,
mate. If this guy's available and there's any chance,
but he is. I mean, the sporting director came out yesterday and said you know, they went, I don't think he'll go in January because I don't believe anyone's going to pay the release clause. He went, but if someone does,
Arsenal pay the release clause for God's sake.
Right, and I just I mean, the thing with Arteta is, I was someone that wanted Arteta to leave. You remember me saying it first. I think second year into his season when we had that long stretch of games where we weren't winning and we weren't playing good football, and I wasn't particularly fond of a lot of the signings at the time, and we just re-signed Aubameyang and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm not seeing it. And I was adamant. I was like, I'm not seeing it at the moment. I don't think it's the right appointment. And he turned it around completely for me. So for me, I want to see him fulfill, what he can do. And I can't help but, I said to James, the one thing is, no matter what happens, I don't think you can let him leave until you've seen what he actually wants to do to the attack. I can't fathom how he does not want to sign a top attacker. He wants to sign it. He has seen the games where we do not create a chance. And, last season, even those games last season where we thought we weren't going to score again, the Fulham game leading into...
Can I say something? If he then, say January, he goes and buys another defender, then what's your take on it?
Exactly. I mean, that's the argument I made to John. Always goes back to the Cronkies.
Why don't we have this conversation after January then, right? Yeah. After the window, because at the moment he could surprise us all, and we could get something astonishing in January. And think, oh my God, no! All right, he's done the right thing. He can't go. Even James might turn. Who knows? But if he goes and gets another defender in January, then come on, man.
The weird thing, Neil, is. Like you, I don't think it matters. I mean, some people have been talking about the League Cup, right? And they're like, well, does the League Cup have more prominence? And I think people might have a little thing there. I usually am like, don't prioritise the League Cup. We've got a lot more things, and I tend to agree with that. But I do think your point on the trophy and stuff like that. I think sometimes, Pep Guardiola early on with City, he'd always win the League Cup. And it made a big difference for the team. And I look at it, I'm like, I wouldn't be. I'd be very much looking at that going, this could be a really important competition for us. Don't play first 11 as such, but play, a strong team in that competition, because it could be a really, really big thing for the sort of.
And we've got a good time. We've got a nice time for the next one.
Yeah, got a nice, exactly.
With all due respect, and I love this is my second team if I ever had, there is such a thing.
Right.
But we could have had a lot harder, very difficult, challenging. We were at home against Palace.
Yeah.
It's a kind time.
Yeah, and definitely a chance there. So I'd be looking at that, for sure. Because that game, if you make it, if you go along that and you make it, I think the final is in like March. Do you know what I mean? So it's like very early on in terms of still a lot left in the season and things like that.
I think it's highly important.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
If nothing else, even if the fans don't see it as a tin pot cut or whatever they want to call it, the players are surely going to appreciate a winner's medal. They're going to love it.
Oh, for sure. And you don't know what that does. You don't know the knock-on effect.
Of course it does. It makes a massive difference. You're at Wembley, for goodness sake. You're at Wembley, you're in a cup final. It's a lot of players' dreams, not just homebred, grown players, overseas players. Everyone, in the olden days, when I was a kid and I used to hear overseas interview, they're going, it's a dream for us to come over one day and play for an English club and then get to the final of the FA Cup, because we want to play at Wembley in a cup final. It was a massive thing, massive. So, all right, if it's not the FA Cup, but it's League Cup, so what? It's still a final at Wembley. And I think it's very important, to be honest, especially for a club in our situation where we are at, where we haven't really been winning trophies. Again, I'm not a trophy hunter, people. Please let me get that right. But I think it's important for the club as a whole, and more so for the players, because it will show that they have actually achieved something from their hard work. I'll keep saying it and keep saying it. They're working hard, Jack. They must be. They're working their socks off to try and achieve something with this club. So to have a reward at the end of it, come on, Jack, you know that as a human being in life, it's nice to get something, isn't it? To win something or to get on top of it
validates everything you're doing, yeah.
And it makes you feel like $100 million. It really does when something's fallen right. Recently, when I got that job, the elation I felt within me was incredible. It's just life, right? So if we're to win the League Cup, why not?
Yeah, no, and it's been a long time. Been a long time since the League Cup. I mean, what was it, early 90s or mid 90s? It was kind of the first, second year I was supporting Arsenal when we last won the League Cup. So, been a long time.
It was a cup double, wasn't it?
Sheffield Wednesday, wasn't it? Both of the finals, yeah.
Both finals, Sheffield Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, no, absolutely. Hopefully we can do it by still allowing some minutes to the likes of, Ranieri and Lewis Skelly and things like that, but who are top players and probably deserve those minutes. So, but yeah, no, I agree with you. But on the Arteta thing, I just think the whole project for him has still not come to fruition. If it had done, those attackers would have been bought. I'm just convinced of that, and they've not been for whatever reason. And like you, I'm convinced we need two. I don't think it is a one player, because if you look at it right now, the likes of Jesus and Sterling and possibly Trossard in 12 months' time, I wouldn't be surprised if they're all not there. So you need two. And, for all the amount of, careful spending Liverpool have, within the time frame that Mikel Arteta has spent 65 million on attackers, they spent 220 million on attackers. Do you know what I mean? And they are quite careful with their money. So that just shows how important firepower at the top end, goals win your games, goals win your titles, so important. And
it's football, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
No matter what we say about, we've got to be great in defence and midfield, football is about putting the ball in the net. Who does that?
Right.
You're paid strikers.
Of course. And every now and then you get lucky with a Saka or a Kane that, comes through your youth system, and they're just, they're just everything you dreamed they would be. But oftentimes you've got to go out and get that player, and I hope it is someone like a Gutierrez, because to be honest, I really like the look of like Sesko and people like that. But again, they're not the finished article. Sesko's not the finished article. He is a player that you'd hope come in. I think we wanted to come in and play maybe secondary to Havertz and stuff like that. Gutierrez comes in and goes, I'm taking the shirt right off your back. I'm taking it. And I still am very, very frustrated that we have got the number 10 and number 14 shirts completely absent. And that stinks to me. And I know a lot of people said, what's the big deal? And I was like, at a club like Arsenal, the number 10 and the number 14 shirts, Mike talked about who is your Mount Rushmore of Arsenal Football Club. And the Mount Rushmore of Arsenal Football Club has a number 10 and a number 14 on it. That's who it has. So why the heck are those shirts absent?
I agree.
They're absent for a reason, Neil. So go and get that player. And, I tell you what, I don't know where we're going to be come January. We're 9 points off the pace right now. Hopefully we can close that gap. But either way, you're playing big time catch up, right? So, the reason's there already. It's not like you're out in front and you're doing it and you're like, we don't need anything.
Reason,
There's even more reason to go. We've got to go and do something. And what a statement it would make to go and do that. And I don't know the reason why City, Liverpool and Arsenal spent so little in the summer. I don't know what the reason is there. That's quite abnormal for the three top clubs in the league to spend. Liverpool spent 50 million, 40 million on a goalkeeper that got loaned back out. We spent 70, 80 million and recouped like 90. City, they're corrupt, so forget about it. But they didn't spend as much as they usually do. They didn't go and buy the big players necessarily. Savinho and maybe what you Gundogan on a free and stuff like that. So I don't know the reason, but there's the money has to be there. It has to be there if we make, one sale. We've not spent ludicrous amounts in the summer, So it'll be interesting, Neil. Neil, I mean, we got the international break. Hard to say whether it comes at a good time. It really is. I mean, maybe we need a break. We've got people like White and Rice and Odegaard and Saka that are being kept back from it.
Which is great.
Yeah, which is great. A little small group that maybe he can do something with there. White needs it. He needs something. I think he's a shadow of the player. I think he was last 100%. Season at the moment. But then we come back to Forest at home. Really tough game. They're in an amazing season. They lost to Newcastle this weekend, but they're having an amazing season. And they're really, really. I mean, they're probably the best counter-attacking team in the league. That's how they beat Liverpool at Anfield. And it's a must-win game once again for us, and we have to find a way. So, Neil, what's your predictions? I know it's a bit far away. It's next Saturday, 3 p.m. game. But what's your predictions for Forest at home for that one? Hopefully, everyone comes back fit. Hopefully, Calafiori comes back fit. Maybe he's close. They said it was only a few weeks, so maybe that would be a really big boost, wouldn't it? But
yeah.
Could do with another fullback, but and then it's relentless after that, isn't it? It leading into Christmas and everything like that. It's fantastic. I can't wait in a way. Even I've been hating football over the last few weeks, but I can't wait to get these poxy international breaks out of the way for a while. But what's your prediction for that, Neil, on first score?
I'll be quick. 2-0, tricky 2-0 though, not easy. I think it's been a hard fought 2-0, and I will go with Havertz. 2-0 Havertz.
2-0 Havertz. Okay. Yeah. It's definitely going to be tricky, isn't it? I'll go 2-1 Arsenal. I'll say we'll do it. I'll go Saka. 2-1 Arsenal, Saka.
Good enough.
So, yeah. I mean, yeah, take either of them, wouldn't we? But, Neil, been a pleasure. Been interesting chat that last 15 minutes. Very interesting about stuff in the summer and Edu and all that kind of stuff. So, sorry, in January in Edu. We're at Purely Arsenal FP on Twitter and YouTube. Just Purely Arsenal, type in there and you can find us there. We do one a week. We'll be back after the Forest game, leading into the Sporting game. I think we've got a Sporting midweek, and we need Arsenal to come back and do something big for us. We need to go on a run, don't we? We need to. Got to believe we did it last season, so we've got to believe we can do it from a little bit of an earlier point this season. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Tweet us at Purely Arsenal FP, and you'll find all our ats there. And Neil, been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Up the Arsenal, mate. Up the Arsenal.